Hello, everyone. This is criminal profiler Pat Brown. And we have breaking news, relatively breaking news, that this particular woman, her name is Rosa Jimenez, she has been exonerated. She was once charged and convicted of the death of this little baby. Actually, was 21 months. And he died with paper towels stuffed into his throat. She was convicted of murder, and now it is claimed that through the Innocence Project and a bunch of judges that it was an accidental death, and or shall I say, they're claiming it's a most likely an accidental death, and she's been freed, and people are very happy about this because she spent many years in prison, almost 2 decades, and if she was innocent of killing this little boy, she never got to see her own children grow up. She was even pregnant at the time she went to prison. Um, However, I have some issues. And what I want to explain to you is what I think is happening, which I do not think represents justice in the way justice is supposed to be done. We've seen a lot of verdicts by juries. Now, anybody who knows me knows I'm not fond of the civilian jury system. I think you put 12 people off a bus stop. That's what I always say. 12 people off a bus stop with no training whatsoever in crime scene analysis and DNA and forensic pathology. And you throw them in there and you get prosecution and defense attorneys trying to convince them and to confuse them and to hoodwink them. And then you bring in experts for each side who say the opposite things. And these totally untrained people, bless their hearts, because they have to sit there day after day after day, especially in a very difficult case with a lot of emotional things go through their minds, and they're being put in one of the most difficult positions to decide whether a person should go to prison or not, or whether the victim is going to get justice, depending on which way you look at it. It's a horrific place for a civilian jury to be in. And they have no training for this whatsoever. And they are basically I just think it's unconscionable that we have this system. I know people think, oh, we don't want a professional jury. We don't want that because then they could just be bought, and sometimes I'm having some issues with judges right now. So I see what they're saying, but I would like a professional jury, meaning that people get trained to be on a jury and they get selected out of a jury pool of professional jurors and they do one case after the other. So they're not beholden to anybody. They're just coming in to do the case and they understand what they're dealing with. That's my preference. But I'm not going to get into that today. What I want to get into is if you believe in the jury system, why are so many jury verdicts just being overturned? You know that thing called the appeal system? That what's supposed to happen is if the defense team for the person who has been incarcerated believes that something has been unjust, well, this is unsafe conviction, that they should then file for an appeal. And then at a certain point, a judge determines that the appeal has some worth, and then it goes back to court, truly another jury, but at least through a jury system. But that's not what's happening today. What's happening today is the jury verdict is just being tossed out. The case isn't going to appeal. What they're doing is going behind the backs of the entire system. And they're getting, for political reasons, for emotional reasons, for whatever reasons, they're skipping the jury part. They're skipping the appeal. And what they're doing is they're finding some new, for example, a new prosecutor comes in. And that prosecutor wants to make a name for him or herself. A new state's attorney comes in and wants to prove something. Hey, look, this is a popular case. In Maryland, Marilyn Mosby. She was a questionable person as far as ethics go. She's state's attorney, Baltimore state's attorney, I believe it is. And she with the Adnan Syed case, Adnan Syed murdered Hayman Lee many years ago. And all of a sudden, she comes in and she's up for some corruption stuff. So anyway, she decides she wants to exonerate him because there was a podcast on Serial, a podcast that made many people think Adnan Syed was innocent. So without a jury, just like exonerate this guy and come up with some claims for why this guy should be exonerated. Like the police didn't do this right, but it's not going through the appeal system. It's just You just got exonerated. We see in New Zealand, Kathleen Folbig, she was convicted of murdering 4 babies. And I think she's guilty as heck. And there's these people who wanted to free her. The defense team and their versions of Innocence Project over there wanted to get her out. So they managed to find some scientists to sign a petition that said, "Oh, these 2 of these babies and 2 of those babies, because there are 4. So 2 of these babies had this genetic issue, and 2 of these babies had that genetic issue, and therefore these children died naturally from these genetic issues, and they weren't smothered." But the science, and supposed, oh, this is new science. This is science. So the governor says, okay, she freed Kathleen Folbig. I'm like, that science was not the science that they claimed was total nonsense. It was garbage, absolute garbage. There was no way that when I looked at the validity of their claims, they were just not valid. And yet, because a whole bunch of people came forward and said, she should be freed, Kathleen Folbig, she's been in prison for killing 4 children, she didn't do it. Somebody exonerates her. No, doesn't get an appeal, doesn't go back to court, just exoneration. Well, here we have it again. So she's been exonerated. And supposedly, and look at the way it's even listed. Now, I want to read this to you because I want you to understand how the system works and how the media works. And when you read things, you may not be getting the full story. And you should get the full story and then see if you actually think this was an okay thing. So this is off the Innocence Project. And they were involved in this particular case. The headline here is Rosa Jimenez is exonerated of a crime that never took place after 20 years. Now that's just a lie. That's a straight up lie for a headline. Why? Because if you look further in the article, it does say, over the years, 4 Texas judges who have reviewed her case in federal and state courts have all concluded that Ms. Jimenez is likely innocent and the child's death was an accident. Likely, not absolutely, just likely. That does not mean that a crime didn't take place. What they're really saying is a crime may not have taken place. And this is important. Words matter. Understanding how things are matters. All right, so this is what they say, that it's never took place. And now she's free and happy. All right. I'm going to read you what the Innocence Project says, and then I'm going to read you from one of her appeals. And this is where the truth always lies. Most people never see anything beyond the blasting media headlines. The media comes out. And once the Innocence Project says this, and then the local media gets hold of this, every single headline is, yay, 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 she's been exonerated. She never did anything wrong, blah, blah, blah. Nobody ever knows the details of what happened. And I have found over and over the Innocence Project, because I don't trust them. And, I don't have any objection to the Innocence Project getting out innocent people. I have an objection to the fact that they don't tell the truth, that they look for technicalities to get out. A lot of guilty people get out because of the Innocence Project, because they are concerned about whether the person is truly innocent. They're trying to release people from what they consider government control and especially death penalty cases. A lot of politics involved with them. So I have found that the only way I ever get the truth is I have to find the appeal on the case. And sometimes, oh my gosh, I have to go 20 pages into Google before I find the appeal. And then I read it and go, oh my gosh, that's not what I'm seeing in the media now. So this stuff is usually very hidden through Google, because Google just puts all the top media people, whatever's coming out. And the Innocence Project has a huge media presence. And so they control a lot as far as how much media is in their favor. All right, so let me read you what the Innocence Project says first. All right. Rosa Jimenez was exonerated today. That's August 7th, 2023. After the Travis Court District Attorney moved to dismiss a 2003 murder charge against her based on testimony from leading pediatric airway experts that affirmed the death at the center of the case was a tragic accident and not murder. Okay. The defense attorneys found some pediatric airway experts who would say this was an accident. Similar to the Kathleen Folbig case. They found some experts who would say Kathleen Folbig's kids likely died of genetic issues and weren't smothered. You can always find an expert. That's what the defense case usually does. But in this, what's happening here is that it's not in court. So it's all going on behind the scenes, and it becomes very political. Ms. Jimenez, who has always maintained her innocence, was convicted of the murder of a 21-month-old child she was babysitting, choked on paper towels, and suffered a severe brain injury due to oxygen deprivation. He passed away 3 months later. All right, so the judge, Karen Sage, stated that she would be granted this exoneration, re-released. There was no crime committed here. Ms. Jimenez is innocent. Again, not proven that she's innocent and not proven that there was no crime. It's an opinion from some people. Okay, so they conducted supposedly the Travis County District Attorney's Office. And mind you, the District Attorney's Office, especially if they're a new group of people, and there's political issues, and sometimes there's just all kinds of things behind why they're willing to do certain things. They conducted an in-depth review of the evidence through its trial division, special victims unit, and conviction integrity unit. That all sounds good. The evidence included reports and testimony of numerous pediatric airway experts who unanimously concluded that the choking accident was the result of a tragic accident. Sounds really good. But you say, well, this is the prosecution saying this, not the defense. Theoretically, it looks that way, right? Because this is a defense. This is the DA's office, right? So district attorney, it is the prosecution. Same thing with Adnan Syed. It was that office that pushed for him to get freed. Now, but what happens is there's media, there's pressure being put on those people to therefore change their minds over something. And they aren't the original people. So they're scoring points. Now, could she be innocent? Yes. The problem is the way it's done and what people actually know happened. All right. So they say at Ms. Jimenez's original trial, the state presented faulty testimony, stating that it would have been physically impossible for the child to have accidentally choked. It's faulty testimony. Now the testimony is not faulty. You see how this works? So you basically say that you had experts and they were all faulty in what they said. But now all our experts are perfect. They're not faulty at all. Now, this is the problem we have. The same thing we have when we're actually in court and we have the defense and we have the prosecution. This expert says this and this expert said that. Which one's faulty? They're supposed to be both experts in their field. One is either stupid or one is a lying dog. I mean, what are we going with here? So now they say all the previous testimony was faulty. All our new testimony now is absolutely 100% accurate. All right. So they said they'd used false and misleading testimony. No, they used the testimony of experts, and now they're saying it's false and misleading. So anyway, support for Ms. Jimenez's innocence has been widespread. Yes, that's because the Innocence Project and all kinds of people get on board, and this is the huge pressure that's put on the district attorney's office and the politicians. Hey, we got to free her because she's innocent. Again, if she's truly innocent, a horrific wrong has been done. I am not objecting to if she's truly innocent. But the fact is, the pressure is what got this redone, not necessarily facts. All right. So then they said likely innocent and the child's death was an accident. I love how the likely innocent gets in there, though, because if she's likely innocent, then she's possibly not innocent. And if you say the child's death was an accident, it also could not be an accident. All right. Now, this is what you'll never get from the media. Hang in, because this is fascinating. And I'm going to do some demonstrations with paper towels. Well, look at this. It doesn't, my green screen wants to see through them. But anyway, paper towels. All right. All right. An opinion. Okay, well, so this is the appeal. And this was the appeal on the third district court, Texas Court of Appeals at Austin. Rosa Jimenez versus the state of Texas. All right. This was, okay. Anyway, opinion. The jury convicted Rosa Estella. I don't know if it's, I think pronounced Spanish-wise, it's Estella, not Estella. Jimenez, of the offenses of felony murder and injury to a child. Punishment was assessed at 75 years imprisonment for felony murder and 99 years imprisonment for injury to a child. In 5 points of error, Jimenez challenges the legal and factual sufficiency of the evidence supporting her convictions, complains of prosecutorial misconduct, alleges ineffective counsel. That's always, blame a defense attorney for being a lousy defense attorney, and asserts a double jeopardy violation. Okay, now that's what's happening here. Now, let me tell you the background. And here's where it gets interesting, because what you're going to see in the newspaper is that she was babysitting this little boy. She was pregnant. She had her other child there. She babysitted this little boy. She was always this wonderful, wonderful human being. Everybody loved her. The parents of this kid loved her. And due to this one tragic accident, her whole life has been ruined, and she couldn't raise her own kids. That's what you hear. Nobody tells you what happened that day. And again, I'm not saying she's guilty. I'm just saying nobody tells you what happened. All right. The jury heard evidence. Remember that? Those are the jury people. Yeah. The people that don't matter anymore. They heard evidence that on January 30th, 2003, Jimenez, a 20-year-old woman, was babysitting BG, and his name is Gutierrez. I think it's Brian. Sorry, it's not here in front of me. And most of the articles don't even show a picture of this little boy, and they don't say his name either. It's like he doesn't matter anymore. The 20-month-old child of Victoria Gutierrez. So he's 21 months old. This is important. He's less than 2 years old, not even a 2-year-old. Gutierrez testified that Jimenez babysat BG 2 or 3 times a week at Jimenez's apartment. Now, all right, this is at her apartment. This is a place she controls. Now, this is very important. When you babysit somebody's kid, you are responsible, period. And even if you're kind of laid back about your own kids, when you watch somebody else's kid, you're double responsible. I know this because I have a 9-year-old granddaughter, and when I have her in my care, I've often told her, your mother might let you do this, and that's fine. But I'm your grandmother, and you're not my child. You're my grandchild, and I have to make sure when I'm taking care of you, nothing goes wrong. That your mother's going to be furious at me because I didn't do something properly. So I have to be very careful with you. More careful than maybe if you're my own kid, I just go, whatever. But she's a babysitter. She has to look after this child very, very carefully. Now, it's her own apartment, which means she knows she's not like going to somebody else's house where she doesn't control the situation. Everything in her apartment is in her control. She put things where she put things. She's got locks on the doors where she needs locks on the doors. She's handling things in her apartment. All right. Now, she watched him 2 to 3 times a week while Gutierrez worked. Gutierrez testified that BG, I'm just going to call him the baby liked to play with objects in her kitchen and, quote, take everything out. Gutierrez recounted how the baby liked to drop objects from the kitchen table into the toilet. I'm not sure how close the toilet was to the kitchen, but she liked to drop objects into the toilet. She also explained that he liked to play with paper and once placed an entire roll of toilet paper into the toilet. Okay. Gutierrez emphasized, however, that he never put paper towels in his mouth. Now, here's the problem here. All right. If the mom is saying this kid takes objects and likes to throw them in the toilet, that's her house, and she's in control of that. If this happens at her house, there's a different problem here. Why would this kid have access to her toilet? He's under 2 years old. All doors to the toilet should be shut, and she should be watching him. This kid should never be out of her sight, ever. He's under 2. If she's in the kitchen, he better be right next to her in the kitchen, or he better be in a playpen. But he cannot be running around her house without being watched. This is not her kid. She can't take chances with him, but she apparently did. She wasn't watching him. Now, okay, so on the day of the incident, Jimenez came to her door crying and asking for help, holding the baby who looked limp and purple. Vera asked Jimenez to tell her what happened. She responded that she thought he had swallowed something. Vera took the baby from Jimenez, placed him on the floor, and attempted to check the inside of his mouth. However, she could not get her finger very far down because he was biting on it. Vera noticed very little blood, she noticed a little blood out with the saliva coming out of the mouth. The blood appeared to be fresh. Vera tried to ascertain more details from Jimenez about what happened to the baby, and she explained This is what she explains, that the baby had been walking toward Jimenez when she saw that he was choking, and then he fell to the floor. Jimenez picked him up and started slapping him on the back to try to dislodge whatever was choking him. She also put fingers in his mouth and looked in, but she could not find anything in his mouth. Nothing was in there at all. She thought he might be choking on a toy. Okay, so then they called 911, and he wasn't breathing at that point, and pretty much he was dead. So they thought he was dead. And that's what they told. That's what they told the dispatcher. They thought he was dead because he didn't look like he was breathing. But anyway, they brought him to the hospital. And let's see. They couldn't feel a pulse. They did CPR. EMS was treating the child. And Jimenez was crying and screaming, "How is he? How is he? Is he okay? Is he okay?" And she was told they didn't know. One of the EMS technicians came outside and asked if he had swallowed anything. And Jimenez reported that BG had been playing with toys, but she did not know what he had swallowed. All right. Torres began. This is Torres. Torres is, let me see who Torres is. Officer Torres. Okay. Officer Torres began asking Jimenez questions to obtain additional information about the baby. Torres soon discovered that the baby wasn't her child. He asked if she knew how to contact the mother, and she said here's a telephone number. And Jimenez kept explaining to the officer that Jimenez's 1-year-old daughter had been playing with toys while Jimenez was cooking. And while she was cooking, she called out for the baby to bring her a roll of paper towels. What? Wait. Okay, here's where we start having the problem and why the jury might have convicted her. She calls out for him to bring her a roll of paper towels. Now, I don't know about you, but I have a roll of paper towels. It's sitting right behind over there. That's my kitchen, that way. It's sitting on the counter where paper towels usually sit. Now, paper towels usually are on one of those wall things where you pull it down, or they're just sitting next to the sink. I'm lazy. They sit next to the sink. My paper towels are not in the living room, the bedroom, or the bathroom. They're next to the sink. Can they be elsewhere? I guess. But why are they elsewhere? You're taking care of a child. Why are paper towels someplace else? Now, and she's asking a child who's under 2 years old, can bring me the paper towels. What? And now she's admitting, mind you, that the paper towels are not in the kitchen. They're someplace else. All right. Let's go on. When he didn't respond, didn't bring her the paper towels, she goes to look for him and finds him lying on the floor and not breathing. Wait a minute. Didn't she just say before that he walked toward her and then collapsed? Now she's saying he's on the floor not breathing. So their story has changed. All right. One of the paramedics testified that they observed that he wasn't breathing, had no pulse, blah, blah, blah. Then they went and they had to use forceps, and they finally found there was 2 dime-sized. They went in there and pulled stuff out. They thought he was choking on food, but that wasn't what it was. It was something red. They thought it was brisket, like a piece of meat, red and kind of looked fleshy like meat. But it turned out it was paper. On a third attempt to remove the obstruction, the guy pulled out the remainder of the object. When it finally dislodged, made a sucking sound. Because of the object's size, Kerr had difficulty extracting it past BG's teeth. Described the object as a large mass of blood-soaked paper towels the size of a large egg. This much. Down his throat. He was shocked at the size. Her name was Rojo. I don't know who that is, but okay. Rojo explained that she was shocked at the size of the mass, how far into BG's airway it had lodged, and the amount of blood on it. So it wasn't like right here in the mouth. It wasn't like partly just like stuck here. It was like so lodged that they had to go forceps down and pull out this big mass. At that point, she said she no longer believed that the baby had accidentally choked. All right. It's unclear exactly how big the thing was, but they said about 3 inches long and 1 3/4. So basically about this big. All right. They were surprised. They thought they're going to find a food product or a toy. Those would be things that children would normally swallow, not a huge wad of paper towels. All right. Anyway, the kid went to the hospital. They questioned whether a 21-month-old child would be capable of putting an object that size down into his airway. They don't think that would be possible because the child would have a gag reflex and, and wouldn't be able to push it that far down in his throat. So then the Dr. Patricia Oring, a pediatric intensivist who specialized in the critical care of children, testified he suffered hypoxic brain injury from the oxygen cutoff in the airway, and for probably 30 to 40 minutes. And this was absolutely not consistent with Jimenez's claim that she immediately rushed the baby to Vera's apartment. It takes about 45 minutes to an hour for heart to stop beating when it's completely deprived of oxygen. Okay, so forth. Anyway, let's see. A whole big clump of stuff. Yeah. And she said this: there's no way that the baby put this in his mouth all by himself. By the time a child is almost 2, they have other ways to explore their environment. They don't explore by mouthing things. 2-year-olds definitely put things in their mouths, but by the time they're almost 2, they put things in their mouth that either look like they're going to taste like candy, or look like food, or look like something to drink. They drink lamp oil. They put beads in their mouth. If it doesn't taste good or have an interesting texture, they're not going to leave it in their mouths. They're not going to shove it in the back of their mouth and down their throats. Things that slip down are like beads or small toys, buttons, eyes off of teddy bears, coins, things that are slippery, that are going to, slide on when the tongue is covered with saliva. They're going to, okay. Children don't suck on paper towels. All right. So they said his gag reflex would prevent him from actually being able to push that down into his throat, which is a very odd thing for him to do. She believed that he had to be held down and that stuff was stuffed into his throat. And there was she had a little bite mark on her hand. At least that's what they claimed it was, and so on and so forth. There was inside, it discovered, let me see what they say here. Detective Walker arrived. He testified he searched Jimenez's apartment. Inside, he found discovered a roll of paper towels located on a sofa in the living room. One of the sheets was separated from the roll. In the bathroom, Walker observed a red spot on the faucet handle that appeared to be dried blood and also appeared to be a blood smear on the edge of the bathtub. They seized the paper towels and the faucet handle and took samples. The substance on the faucet and the bathtub was blood consistent with the baby's DNA analysis. They transported Jimenez to department headquarters and they interviewed her. She said that her 1-year-old daughter and the baby were both suffering from a cold that day. And at one point, she had used a paper towel to blow BJ's nose and left a roll of paper towels on the sofa and then went to the kitchen to cook. She then noticed the baby and her daughter were playing with the paper towels. She told the baby to stop. However, the baby continued playing with the paper towels, tearing sheets from the rolls and throwing them. Jimenez then saw the baby go to the bedroom, leaving the roll of paper towels behind on the sofa. Later, she told him to come over here where I can see you, because she did not want him to enter the bathroom and put his hands on the toilet bowl. Then she saw the baby coming toward her, working very slowly with his hand on his throat. He was very red. She asked what was wrong. He didn't answer it because he was choking. And then she supposedly took him to the bathroom because he looked like he was throwing up, put her fingers in his mouth to look at him, hit him on the back, and that was unsuccessful, so she took the kid next door. And she said she loved the baby a lot, as if he were her boy. Now, she does have problems saying things like, I don't know if I pushed the paper. I was due to nervousness. I don't know if I pushed the paper. He opened his mouth. I don't remember. Maybe I put my hand inside the mouth. I don't know. Did he bite you? It could be seen that he bit me, and so on and so forth. All right. So the question comes down to, would this baby, first of all, why did he have access to the paper towel? Now, if you're standing there watching him, he's just ripping up paper towels, is not a big deal. The fact that he could go into the bathroom and play in the toilet should not have happened. It shouldn't happen. There's no reason for him to be doing that and have access to the toilet. A child at that age, for example, can fall into water and drown. So, most kids don't fall into a toilet, but they could go head first in. And, basically, you're babysitting somebody's kid. You don't let them wander around in places they shouldn't wander around. That's why you have a thing called a baby gate, especially when you're watching somebody's kid. So something's happened. Either carelessness happened and he had an accident, or something else happened. Now, Supposedly, this is wad of toilet paper. I mean, wad of paper towels. Now, this is 5. Now, I don't know. I don't know if this may be thicker than back in the day, but well, this is more. I'm thinking these are probably way thicker because this is like, well, wait a minute, this is not wet yet. So this is a whole bunch of paper towels. Now the question is, would a paper towel? Kids playing with a paper towel. Wow. I'm sorry, I don't even know how. There is a gag reflex. I can't get more than 1 in my throat. How the hell did he get 5? Now, his other theory is he's dunking this stuff in the toilet. So we got 5 here. I got water here. I'm gonna soak this sucker. Okay. Now I got soaked paper towels, the size of an egg. Well, it certainly can't put them in all at once. Okay, so the wet paper towels. This is called crime scene reenactment. I can't even get 1. Okay, so I think these are probably thicker than the towel she had. This is one of these super bounty towels or whatever. So I'm just going to say, let's say that the paper towels were thinner. And so I'm trying to make one that's more of an egg size. So it's a proper size. And this gets in his little throat. Okay. I'm squishing. Okay. That's more egg sized. I can even take some off, make it smaller. Okay, let me go with this size. Okay, this is egg size. Wow. Okay, let me try. What are you going to eat? Oh. I'm not usually that throw up either. I'm just trying to figure out how this little boy is going to get this down his throat. Even 2 of them, I can't even figure out how he's doing it. He's eating little pieces. He's eating a lot of little pieces and swallowing them, and then they get stuck. That's a lot of little pieces to get stuck. I mean, that would be the only way. He's literally having. I'm not going to try that because I don't want to die. Okay. He would have to eat them all. He would have to eat them one after the other until he ate too many of them, and they started lodging in his throat. Could he eat this many? 5 pieces. 5 pieces. Now, I would buy this. Have it. And he's quite to swallow that. Right? Buy a swallow no one. All that. I might go with this. I don't know how he would get this many pieces down his throat. That's a lot. I can't even fathom it, how he'd do it. Could it have happened? Well, again, I would like to see what the weight of the paper towels were. They said it was 5 pieces. That's a lot of pieces. That's a lot of pieces. And the claim by the prosecution is that he was crying and screaming and was a pain in the butt, and she went nuts. And she got pissed at him, screaming, and she took these things and just shoved them into him. Now, could she have gotten them shoved enough to get them down into his throat and then realize what she'd done and then go for help? Or could he, literally, he cannot. There's no way he can put this entire thing. It can't. That's just plain impossible. The question could be, and remember, his mouth is way smaller than mine. Way smaller. He's a baby, he's got a little mouth. So he would literally have to take pieces and start throwing all the pieces and swallowing all the pieces. How many pieces could he swallow before he choked? And I just can't think of more than like maybe 3 of them because they're going to stuck in his throat. It would be like this. This I would believe is an accident. It's getting up to this size, I'm having trouble with it. That's a lot. Or even if they say egg size and 5 pieces. I don't know. I want to know how they came up with this to be an accident. Maybe it was, but where is the appeal? Where is the new jury? Where's a new trial? And you get these people in. I want to see them show up. I want to see them do crime scene reenactments. I want to see them show how the swallowing would work, how 5 of these, supposedly 5 pieces of paper, of paper towel can get in his throat. How would they get stuck there? Because they would literally have to be pulled off and eaten one by one by one, and they all have to be wet. Because there's no way. Take a piece like this. Well, I'm not going to take that. When I fall over, call 911. Tell them, you don't know where I live. I'm doomed. I mean, he could have chewed dry paper, and chewed it and ate it one after the other. But I just don't see how he could eat very much of it. Now, mind you, when it's in his throat and the saliva going around, that can wet the paper towels. Yes. But I want to know, before you say there's no way she could have committed this crime, I want you to explain to me, defense people, judges, those who exonerate. If you're saying it's likely it was an accident, I want to know how this accident occurred, because this is what would happen in a court of law. You've already seen me. It can't be big pieces. It's impossible. You literally have to chew up little pieces. How could he chew up that many little pieces to get it to be that many? And what period of time are we talking about? And everything else. I want anybody who's exonerated to have the same level of scrutiny for the exoneration as I do for them to be prosecuted. I don't want a group of people going, well, it could have been this. I don't care what it could have been. I want you to prove it to me. And I want you to prove it well enough that you go, okay, this kid literally could have been chewing down a whole bunch of paper towels and he choked to death. But it has to be consistent with the evidence. And I'm not getting the information on that. So I'm not saying she's guilty, but I also am not saying she's innocent. And actually, neither are they. And so this little boy died in her care. That we do know. So it was a neglect regardless. Absolute neglect. This family lost their son. The claim here is that, my God, she had to spend 20 years in prison and not get to see her children grow up. That's true. This family, their son was killed on her watch. He's a child. She's responsible. So it was either manslaughter or it was murder. But murder was what they came up with the first time. So what are you coming up with now for exoneration? Now, maybe if it was truly manslaughter, in other words, she didn't pay attention to him, she neglected him, and therefore she's responsible for his death, she's 20 years was sufficient. But I just don't like the way these things are done. I don't like this behind the scenes where we don't get the information. We just have one day pop out. They go, oh, we have experts that say, he choked to death on his own. That family must be furious because I know they want an answer and they have the right to an answer. And we as citizens and the jury have a right to have proof that this child choked himself to death and she didn't put those paper towels down his throat. And they were very far down his throat. So the question is, did he swallow that many of them? So they eventually built up in his throat. And again, how long would that take a child? And where the heck were you? While you were asking him, bring me the paper towels, where was he? And how would it be 5 pieces? If that's what is true, 5 pieces of paper towel. I want to know how thin they are and how he could have done it. I want the answers. And those answers should be there before she's exonerated. And I'm not seeing them. So that's my problem. That's why I wanted to explain to you today that there's always so much more sometimes when you go look at the appeals. You find out the information that the media is not telling you, the defense is not telling you, the Innocence Project is not telling you, because they made their determinations for whatever reasons they made them, whether they're right or wrong. A lot of times, as I said, a lot of times it's political. And this family over here is probably pissed. And this victim suddenly doesn't matter anymore because now she's the victim. Is she the victim? Do we have proof she's the victim? That's a problem. And we're seeing it. Adnan Syed, the jury convicted him on very good evidence. And now people think he's the victim. Kathleen Folbig, four babies died in her care of genetic issues now. Genetic issues which make no sense whatsoever. When I looked at the statistics on it, there was no way 4 children died of those issues. And they always died in her care too. Not while she was out at the store and the children's hearts just gave out. Not at the store, not at the pediatrician's office, not at church, not any place else but in her care when she was alone with them. But because some scientists were willing to sign a petition that said, we think this genetic thing could cause this, but the statistics are not there to say that all 4 of her children would have died in this way. This is some nonsense stuff that's going on. And it really bothers me because I don't think that's justice. And I'm sure that the husband of Kathleen Folbig is not happy that 4 of his children, in his opinion, were murdered by his wife. And now she gets to walk free because some scientists got together with very poor scientific claims. And even I, not scientist, can see that a mile away because I studied it. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. Yep. Somebody signed something. Governor said, let's set Kathleen Folbig free. Yay. But the real proper doing, which would be take it back to court in an appeal, and at least allow this to be. But you see, now the prosecution is getting on the side of the convicted because things change over. There's pressure from the media. There's pressure from the Innocence Project. There's pressure from whatever, the podcasts out there. And now the new prosecution comes in and says, let's just let them go. We'll score points. But do they exonerate them because they're truly innocent? And that's the real question. It's a good question. And I'm not seeing that proof here. And I would like to see it. Anyway, that's my thoughts on this. I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit about how this all works and the appeal issue. Next time you see something like this go down, put their name in and put appeal and search until you get the appeal. And then you find some interesting things. By the way, her appeal was denied. So they went around the appeal system. How clever. Anyway, if you're new to the channel, please do like this video. Please do subscribe to the channel. And yeah, I'm a little bit annoyed. And I don't like to see things done this way. I like proof, not suggestions. See you next time.